Okay, so today we're going to be compositing an explosion inside of Hitfilm for Express. So to get things started, I'm going to drag my footage into a timeline, and then I'm going to right click, unlink, and then delete the audio. So we can see that we've just got some footage of a garage, and we are going to place an explosion inside of this scene. So I'm going to select it and make composite shot, and I'm going to rename it to boom, and then I'm going to make sure I've got selected clip, and then we can click OK. So now you can see this has made a new tab called boom, so we can go back into the editor and also into boom. So the first thing we need to do to get this effect to work is to track our footage. So we're going to hit the drop down, and we're going to go into tracks, and we're going to click add. This opens up a massive panel on the right, and this will allow us to track our footage. Just going to make it a bit smaller, and so single point will track X and Y, but our clip rotates as well. So we need to make sure we have double point, which will add rotation and scale to our track. And this gives us two different tracking points. The red bit is the bit that actually gets tracked, and the green box is where the system looks for the red box. So the bigger that is, the more places where it can find it. So we'll just drag that over to the corner of this garage door, and we'll shrink the green box a bit because it doesn't need to be that big. And then we'll grab the other one and move that to the opposite corner and put that in there and make the green box a bit bigger. So now that we've got this set up, we can hit play, and it will go through all of our clip and track it. So I'm going to skip ahead to when that is done. Okay, so the track is now finished. So you can see that they've got blue dots from all the positions, and what we want to do is create a new layer, point layer, and we're going to rename that to track. Then I'm going to select my tracker again, and I'm going to make sure I've got transform selected and select the layer that I want to apply it to, and then I'll select rotation and scale and hit apply. So now we can close the tracker tab just so we've got a bit more space, and this tracking point is not visible, but it will have all the keyframes from position, scale and rotation that we can attach our explosion layer to make it follow the scene. So we're going to put in our explosion layer, and you can see it's just a sort of simple explosion, which looks quite cool. So first thing to do is position it in our scene, and then we're going to go to the drop down menu over here and select our point layer. So now if we play, it fits inside the scene and it moves with the camera. So another thing I'm going to do is scale it up to make it a bit bigger, more explosive, and then I'll have to reposition it, and we have this. So that looks pretty cool. I'm going to close down that menu, and I'm then going to apply motion blur. So with the camera move, it will add a bit of blur with the movement. It won't be much, but it just adds an extra layer of realism to our scene. Then I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it, Command D if you're on a Mac, and I'm going to grab the fill effect and put that on the duplicate. I'm then going to select the sky, so I'm going to start off by zooming in, and you can drag your screen with the right mouse button, and then I'm just going to click on the sky. So now our explosion has been completely filled with the sky color, so it looks pretty pants. But what we can do with this is put it into a blend mode, such as add, and then take down the opacity a little, like 10%, and it will fit into the scene better because it's got the sort of weather of the day, so it fits in with the scene, and this just makes it look more realistic and brings it together. Since it was a duplicate, all the settings on it are already fine, so we're all good. So another really key trick to making good explosions is to use lots and lots of elements. So what I'm going to do now is drag in a smoke element underneath the explosion. We don't want to put it on top because that's taking up the main element, which is the explosion. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab the mask, the square mask, and I'm just going to drag it over the explosion, chopping off the bottom. And then what we can do is we can go into the shape in the mask and add lots of feathering, and this makes so it doesn't have a really harsh edge at the bottom, so it'll blend well. So we can put our explosions back in and try and fit it into the scene. So here that looks okay, so we'll put it on the tracker. Okay, so that's a bit to the right, so we'll move that over a bit so it's right where the explosion is, and that looks perfect. So we can hit play, and that looks pretty cool. One thing we're going to do is we're going to go into effect and select brightness and contrast. I'm going to throw that onto our smoke or dust. I'm going to up the contrast and turn down the brightness, and this will create darker smoke as if it was from a big fire rather than a little piece of dust. So now that looks a bit better. Also, you can see at the end it fades out, so we're going to go into transform and we're going to keyframe opacity before it ends, and then we're going to go to around the finish and we can make another keyframe taking it down to 0 so it fades out rather than disappear. Then we're going to select both the keyframes and click smooth, which creates a smoother transition into the ending. The next element I'm going to add is some debris. This is CG, but it looks pretty cool and it adds an element of rubble into the scene because in reality there would be a lot of rubble. So we're going to put this in and position it in the right place. That looks good, and then we can apply it to our tracker. So now this will explode outwards and stay in the scene. So one thing to notice is it disappears after it's ended, so we can go to the end where it's not moving, right click and hit slice, and then we can right click on the second one, click speed and duration. You can just set that to 1% so it won't move at all, and then just drag it out for the rest of the comp. So it'll stay still for the rest of the scene, as if it's just staying there, which looks really cool. Okay, so now that we have that, we want to select motion blur on all of these layers to keep them in the scene, and we can preview. And that looks pretty cool. So another thing that adds lots of realism to explosions is to have some lighting. So we're going to create a new plane and select a nice bright orange and click OK. We'll name this lighting. And then we can hit OK. So now you can't see anything, so I'll drag it below all my explosion layers, I guess. And then I'm going to turn down the opacity so we can see what's underneath it. Then I'm going to grab the mask tool and I'm going to select different layers for there to be some light on, such as the garage door here and also the floor, like so. Now this is mucked up because as soon as I finish a mask it will automatically select the top layer, so you need to make sure you've got the layer that you're masking selected. So now we can do that. Okay, and then we're going to go into both of our masks and shape, and we need to make sure that the feathering is as harsh, soft as we can, so it doesn't look like a square box, which doesn't look that good. So we can add the feather on this, and then we want to apply it to our tracker. So now we have some environmental lighting in our scene, but it's still there when the explosion ends. So again, we want to keyframe our opacity to die when the explosion dies. So I'm going to go to a place where the explosion is still there, but sort of fading out, so this looks good. And then I'll keyframe opacity, and then I'll go to when the flame dies out, and we'll just set opacity to 0. Smooth these keyframes, and we can preview this. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm happy with the way it looks. We'll add motion blur, and that really wraps the scene together. So that's all for this tutorial on how to composite an explosion realistically inside a Hitfilm 4 Express. Thanks for watching, see you next week.